There has never been a better time than now to come join the Bellisio Foods team. Bellisio has a new contract in place with plenty of awesome perks for their employees. From increased wages, access to the free health clinic, vacation after 6 months, and much more, Bellisio Foods is committed to putting their employees first. For more information or to apply, visit BellisioFoods.com/careers. Take advantage of these great new employee benefits and join the Bellisio team today. Visit BellisioFoods.com/careers to learn more. We at Orange Crush have many things to be thankful for, including everyone who makes Orange Crush a part of their day. To show our thanks, Orange Crush, WKOV, and participating Save-A-Lot locations will be giving away Thanksgiving turkeys to dozens of winners because even though Thanksgiving celebrations still might look different this year, we know Thanksgiving favorites will still be a part of your plan. Visit GJPepsiContest.com/turkey to find out where you can enter to win now through November 18th. No purchase is necessary. See official rules for details.
A 2021 Christmas concert is being planned, however, the men need to increase their numbers. There is still time to become part of this show. Join us at the Marquet Cultural Arts Center in downtown Jackson, Tuesday evenings at 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. See you there. Oh, by the way, be ready to meet new friends and have fun. And, oh yes, bring your smile, you'll need it.
Right?
Good morning, everyone.
Yeah, I wonder if they caught that. I said, "What's it mean when your left eye itches?" And he said,
"Hopefully not pink eye."
I've had that.
That's
before.
Not a good way to start the morning.
Somebody been messing with my pillow, I guess. I don't know.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, Jennifer is not here again this morning, so it's me again.
Hello.
And
I forgot to bring Jennifer's sister back.
Well, I thought about recommending that, and so we could just see if nobody noticed. But we're here with Porterhouse himself, Mr. Rodney Tomblin.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir, for coming in.
Hey, not a problem, man. You caught me right at the right time.
I know, serendipitous. I turned on the radio yesterday morning. I was like, Rodney's in town. And we can rope him into doing this.
And I'm getting ready to leave for a month, so you caught me right at the right time.
Perfect. Well, happy to have you here. For those that don't know, we are in the process of moving to our new studio at the Stockmeister Plaza, and this might be the last week that we're broadcasting here from the radio building.
Yeah, and that was kind of another reason that whenever you reach out to me that I was like, heck yeah. I mean, it'd be kind of a nice way to get to say goodbye to the old media building. You know, I've been a part of Jackson County Broadcasting on and off since May 1988.
Wow.
Believe it or not. So
I was one.
Yeah.
I was less than one.
Well, you're making me feel old. But, I was a young man. I was 19 years old, and we started out my first day on the air. I think I got to go back and look at a calendar, but it was around May 20th, May 19th or something like that. It was a Monday morning there in that particular time. But it was a Southern gospel morning radio program on AM 1330. It was called Morning Praise. And I remember turning on the microphone, and my very first words that went across the airwaves on AM 1330 were, "Good morning and welcome to Morning Praise. I'm Rodney Tomblin." And what happened after that, I don't know. It's been a big blur ever since. It's been amazing, you know. We moved. That was in the spring of 1988, and we worked there for a year or so. And I went back to college, and a gentleman by the name of T.J. Jennings. Some of you know him by Tom Justice now, but when he first came in the area, he was an OU graduate, and people were all about air names and using different names on the radio. TJ at the time didn't realize how much of an integrated part of the community he was going to become, but over time, he eventually started using his real name, but, he was TJ Jennings whenever he first started out, and they'd moved the studios to next door to where we are right now. Lou Davis had owned the station then, and that began a new era in Southern Ohio media that, to this day, I don't know if it'll ever be touched as far as great as what local media was like in that time with the news and things like that.
The quality, the popularity, its influence.
Yeah, that was a different time and era. We had live DJs. There was a gentleman, he was in his 60s, maybe even 70s. He did from like 9 o'clock in the morning till like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. His name was Bill Andrick, one of the best voices I think I've ever heard in my life. An old dude, and I remember pulling up to the trailer out on 788, and he would have those monitor speakers cranked, and he'd be jamming out to Lita Ford or something like that. And I thought, this dude's a cool, hip old dude.
Yeah.
That's also where I met J.J. Hale. I met Carl Knox that summer. I don't know, from Knox Insurance. He was really big into radio at that particular point. But, moving over to the Main Street, it began a new era in radio, and a lot of different things happened through the, late 80s and the early mid-90s. And then obviously, mid-90s, I kind of stepped away and then came back at, I think it was like 99, we came back and we did... JJ and I joined JJ doing the Nut Hut on 96.7, and we had a pretty successful run with that for a couple of years. Again, another era of radio that I don't know will ever be matched in Southern Ohio media. But again, it was all about that local flavor, and that's one of the things that I like about Jackson County Broadcasting and what we're still doing here in this area. I don't know if you turn on the radios and stuff, and I know, we have a lot of computer help and things of that nature, but there's a lot of local flavor and a lot of local flair that you don't get from the iHeart radio stations and things that you might tune on, or if you're into Pandora, you don't know what's going on locally. So what I like about the radio here, specifically in Jackson County and in Vinton County, southeastern Ohio, is that it's still got that local flair. You can turn it on, you can get some local news. Thankfully, you can still get live local talent with Matt in the morning on 96.7, Morning Crew. And I'd like to see that expanded, but with the trends and the way things are, it's really hard to keep something like that going. But that's the appeal of this, and I think what the Stockmeister family does with everything in the media department, from the newspaper to right down to the local billboards to the radio station and everything. I think it's really neat that there's someone that still has that hunger for the local flavor of it, because it's so easy to just shuffle it off. I'm gonna tell you right now, it's not easy to own a radio station, even if you don't have your hands on it. Not saying that they don't, but if you don't have your hands on it, you're paying somebody else to run it. A radio station, a media outlet, is not something easy to run, especially a local media outlet in this day and time that relies basically upon local retailers and local businesses like Cable Channel 15, or excuse me, Main Street TV. See, old habits die hard there. And that's another point to point out about the beauty of the localness of this, and to know that this family is dedicated to keeping this local community effort alive, when no longer live on the cable area TV. But you know what? It didn't slow anything down.
We're doing our best to keep bringing that information to people.
Absolutely. And in all honesty, this unfortunately is the way to go. And the beauty of it is, and I think it's cool that even though radio it only goes so far, and a lot of people are into listening on their devices and stuff. I think it's cool. We've moved far enough in the technology. We've got apps you can listen to on your phones, on your computers, or whatever the case may be. This you can watch worldwide, across the world, globally. I mean, we're not just bordered by how far we can go out on these cable systems. I mean, this is a worldwide thing that we got going on. Hopefully, people will tune in, maybe not necessarily today because we probably don't have a lot of local stuff to talk about and showcase, but just a lot of my memories and things of that nature. But, I mean, this outlet is a great opportunity for Jackson County, southeastern Ohio, to showcase itself to the world. And what you guys are doing here with it, I'm so on board with it. I'm so proud to see you yourself doing what you've been able to do. Jennifer, she works along with you in helping move it forward. And, of course, Courtney. I mean, you guys are a great team. And it takes a great team to be able to make something go.
I agree with that. I mean, at Total Media, we are really lucky to have the group that we have. I mean, Jackson County is so lucky to have somebody that's as dedicated as Pete Wilson.
Right.
And, and Phil Buffington is just as dedicated as Pete.
Yeah.
And we, are really lucky to have those guys and have someone that's as talented as Matt McKee to be the voice of the radio. Yeah. And, and Courtney, she works so hard and does so many things, and she's always coming up with, good ideas, clever ideas.
I'll be honest with you. Courtney is probably one of the greatest tools that this business has right now.
I agree.
The talents that she has is remarkable. Her abilities to make things happen and the creativity that she has is, in my opinion, second to none right now. I was talking about those eras in radio and great times. This right now, I think, is the start of a great era in what's going on with this Main Street TV thing. And hopefully it rolls over into the radio and we see a new era and big things happening with that, too.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, you do. Talking about local media like that, how many communities still have a locally owned newspaper?
There's not many.
There's not very many.
I mean, there's a lot of communities. I travel around a lot, and, I go from bigger communities. But what I do mainly, we do in outlying areas of major populations, so we get to the smaller towns and stuff. There are fewer and fewer local media outlets, radio stations. You rarely run across one in these small markets that even have a live DJ. They might have somebody reading a newscast or something along those lines every once in a while, but mainly, it's.
Well, especially once you get outside of public radio that's connected to a university or something like that, and then if you don't count those stations, then it is really thin.
Yeah, it really is, and iHeart's buying up everything, man. And I mean, it's like you turn the radio dial, and maybe you like that consistency, but I like uniqueness of different things. That's what you tune into this. There's nothing unique about it other than there's always something interesting going on. You tune in to Matt in the morning, it's very unique. He's got one day you might be talking something serious and be meaningful and doing something monumental for the community. The next day you might just be making everybody laugh, which again is something monumental for the community because we all need to laugh. I mean, as they say, laughter is the best medicine. And if I didn't laugh, I'd probably explode.
Well, that's what I told Matt when I talked to him yesterday. I was like, man, your show sure is funnier when you've got Rodney in there laughing at your jokes.
Even if it's not funny, it makes it funnier. I remember. I've been in situations and gone back and listened to tapes years ago, and I remember I would laugh, and I could tell when I was really laughing, and when I wasn't really laughing. But most of the time, it's real. I always find humor in most everything, and I have a broad enough and open enough mind that I don't get offended, and I think everything's funny. So even anger makes me funny makes me laugh for some reason. I don't like to be angry. But other people's anger really amuses me for some reason. I don't know why that is. I don't like to make people mad.
That seems like a good way to make people angrier.
It does because you're like, I really don't want to make this guy any madder, but this is kind of funny. So, yeah, I've had to. Luckily, I haven't been smashed in the mouth too many times over my
Too
life.
many
You know,
times.
I have upset a few people, but I think most generally, laughter can also turn a situation around, because if
It's true.
you can laugh in a situation of anger, sometimes you'll get an individual that wants to kill you for it. Other times it opens someone's eyes up to what the circumstance really is.
Yeah.
And it makes it fun. But
Yeah.
and that's what I like. And that's what I like. Whenever you turn on the radio or you turn on Main Street TV, these are people that in the community or from around the area. You see what they're
Yeah.
doing behind the scenes. They give you a little taste of all that kind of stuff. So, yeah.
Yeah.
But,
Jennifer and her dad, did this for like 30 years. We talked about Pete. He's been doing it for, 30-ish years. So these people, like you said, they've been part of this community for a long time.
they have, I think this community owes you mentioned Lou's name. I think this community holds a huge debt of gratitude to Lou Davis, honestly. And I'm not just saying that. I haven't worked for Lou Davis for 30 years, you know what I mean? But Lou Davis gave me an opportunity and gave a lot of people opportunities, and also gave a platform for people to excel and to create the things that they were able to do. And, for that, I'm grateful. People might look at stuff and say, people do things for money. He might have made a buck.
Well, yeah,
or two.
you gotta make a living.
He might have made a buck or two,
Yeah.
and that's the one thing that always gets me. When people are successful, sometimes people ridicule them or whatever. But the main thing is Lou Davis really was all about community. This program on cable channel 15 began all because of him, looking for some way to reach out to the community a little more. He would play his oldies music. He had obviously a love for radio and an amazing voice. The one thing that I know he always said, he never liked my voice. He said, "You'll never make it in radio."
Yeah.
He still kept me around, but he didn't like my voice, and I don't think he really liked me, to be honest with you. I think he just put up with me. But even regardless of whether he liked me or not, I still admire and respect, and I like Lou. To me, he turned out to be kind of a father figure for me in the business sense.
When I was hanging out with you and JJ doing the Nut Hut like New Year's Eve thing and the 4th of July party we did last year, I felt a little out of place because I was the only person in that room that had never been fired by Lou Davis.
Hey, you got to do it at least once. And what's funny is JJ always says that the radio is like the Hotel California. You can check out, but you can never leave. Look, I'm 30-some years later, I'm still coming in and playing around every once in a while. And that's the beauty, and that's another beautiful thing about a small local market radio like that, because it allows for opportunities like this, for me anyway. I don't know if it's good for the community, but it sure is fun for me.
Well, hey, when we always have, Apple Festival queens, kids that win, sports championships, kids that have like academic accolades, we give them the opportunity to come in and, be on the radio like that. And, there are a lot of communities that don't have that opportunity for their kids to get to come in and experience that. And, and maybe they're going to have an experience and say, wow, that's really cool. Maybe that's something that I want to, pursue as a career.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. Amanda Crabtree might be a good example of that. She spent some time in here as an intern. Working, and she eventually became the general manager for a while. And I know she's moved on since then. But that's just one of the things. You want to hear how this all happened for me, and I don't know whether I can thank this individual or whether I can blame this individual for the road that my life took.
All right.
Susan Lambert.
Yeah.
I forget. I think she's Adams, maybe. I don't know what her last name. I think she may have gotten recently married. But Susan worked here. She was a girl that I went to school with, was a very close friend of mine through school. And she was working as a receptionist next, when it was just the sales offices were in town and the studios were out on 788, And she called and she said, Rodney, she said, they're looking for somebody to do, the morning, the 13:30 thing. She said, I told my boss that you would be perfect, and that you were going to school for this and yada, yada, yada. So she said, you ought to come in and put in an application or whatever. So I did. And here I am. And
just to get somebody, a friend was willing to, recommend you, put a good word in for you. Yeah. And that's something
sometimes I'm angry with her. Sometimes I want to thank her.
Yeah. Well, I think that is something that is important. Like if you have the opportunity to help out a friend, you should.
Yeah.
I went to college with a lot of really talented people. And when I first was out of college, I got a job at the Athens Messenger in their graphics department. And at the time, they were really expanding that. And they were bringing in all these papers from other regions, and they were doing all of their graphics work in Athens. And I said, hey, there's a lot of really talented people at Rio Grande.
Yeah.
And we ended up having, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or 7 Rio Grande graduates working at the Athens Messenger, just in that one department at one point in time.
And the great thing about it is you guys could share a lot of experience together, and you kind of knew each other's patterns because you were taught the same way. It all worked out.
Right. Yeah, we had the same training stuff. One of my professors, he was professor at Rio, and now he's a dean at a school in Colorado. He was back this past weekend. He did an art show at Rio Grande, and a lot of alumni came back for that. And I was reunited with the two people that I was in a cubicle with for the first 2 or 3 years that I worked there, and it's been 6 years since then, and I'd kind of forgotten about it. But then when we were all standing next to each other, I was like, man, this is weird. I'm having these I'm having these flashbacks. This is such a weird
imagine what it was
experience.
Like being in studio with JJ after 20 years. I mean, JJ and I, we're friends and comrades and basically brothers in arms, I guess you could say, on a lot of different levels, brothers from other mothers. And even though we're close, we rarely have spoke. Our lives have just gone different routes over the last 20 years.
That's just the way it is being an adult.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean that we're not still close, and that, but anyway, we just don't share as much time together. But it was an oddity to be able to do the 4th of July show and then the New Year's Eve show that we did last year for the 20th reunions. That was surreal kind of in a way. It was a lot of fun. It brought back a lot of great memories. It also reminded me of a lot of hard work that we did to make it what it was,
Oh yeah.
It's really cool. That,
filling a 3 or 4 hour radio show is not an easy task.
Well, I'll say this: it was always easy for me.
Yeah.
I didn't do anything but laugh. Honestly. The beauty of that show is JJ never told me what he was doing.
I thought you were going to say the beauty was JJ did all the work.
And he did. That is it. He did do all the work. He did all the show prep. He wrote all. He got all the bits together. He produced it all, and he would say, Porterhouse. He says, oh, you're going to love today's show, or you're going to love tomorrow. I got some great ideas. No, I ain't going to tell you. I want to see your reaction. I just want to see your reaction. He didn't want anything canned. He didn't want everything that we did. There was whenever it came to me, JJ pre-planned a lot of stuff, but it was all for my reaction is what it all boiled down to.
Yeah.
And I love that. That made it fun for me, and it made it easy for me. I'm not going to lie. Hey, I just skated on his skirt tails, man. It was he was okay with it. You know what I mean? So there you go.
Yeah. No, he loves it. I don't know anyone that loves the format or the medium of radio more than he does.
JJ started working in radio at 14 years old. 14 years old. He was holding a job, I think in Nelsonville, Ohio, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. And he worked. And when I met him, he was 16 years old. Some bubblegum chewing teenage bebop. He barely had his license. Just got his license and was doing a show from 4 to 10 every night.
Wow.
Out there on 788. And I remember the first time I met him, because he had this radio presence. He back then would talk in a hey, how you doing? This is John Hale. He had this really unique way that he would present himself, trying to make himself sound ballsier, I guess. And that's that was the era of radio back in that day. But he.
So about what year would this have been?
This would have been 88.
Okay.
This would have been 1988. I remember walking into it was a trailer. I mean, a regular trailer. You walked in, the kitchen was in front of you, the living room was over here, there was a back bedroom with a bathroom, and that's where the AM studio was. You go down the hall, there was a spare bedroom, and a bedroom at the very end that had the FM studio set up in it. And I was in kind of training before my first time on the air, and I walk in and I go back that hallway. I see this in my mind all the time. He had like this white ball cap on, had his big old headphones on, and he was chewing bubble gum. Yeah. Just going to town on it, And I said, "Hey, how you doing? I'm Rodney Tomblin." He said, I'm going to be working on the AM. He said, man, I'm John Hale. I said, "You're John Hale?" And I meant it.
I thought you were a full-grown adult man.
I didn't think he was some little pipsqueak teenage kid,
Yeah.
And I'll never forget that. I mean, that is one of the memories that is literally burned into my brain. And he was sitting in the chair backwards too. It was, it's crazy. Yeah. That's it right there.
Hey, I'm John Hale. Nice to meet you.
That's it right there. Ball cap on back. Just a chomp of those headphones cocked to the side. I'll never forget.
I think that's kind of an interesting thing. I like listening to like morning radio or even like podcasts and stuff like that. You hear all these voices and you like all these personalities, like Car Talk. You listen to Car Talk a lot back in the day. Like, I never wanted to know what those people looked like because it's like reading a book, right? Like you read a book and you have in your head what the characters look like.
Yep.
And like radio personalities are kind of the same way.
Yep.
And then you see their photo in like a press release or they do like
what you
or they do a TV show or something like that. And it's like, oh, that's what that dude looks like.
Well, you've heard the expression and term "face for radio," right?
Yeah, yeah. A lot of those guys have it, right?
Yeah. I may be in that genre myself, but regardless, that's true. And you wouldn't believe how many people over the years, and that would come into the radio station when I worked there. Many of the people that would come in and say, "You're Porterhouse," or "You're Rodney." I expected you to be some great big dude or something like that, and they never expected to see it. Now, I was a little bigger than what I am now at one time, about 70 pounds heavier probably at one time in my life, but being around fit and healthy people makes you kind of fit and healthy sometimes. I still haven't quit smoking cigarettes, but I'm getting closer to fit and healthy.
Hey man, that's what we're all doing.
Yeah,
we're just doing our best.
Doing our best
to do what we can.
And nowadays with the price of gas, it's kind of hard to eat anymore. Because
I thought you were going to say you're just going to start walking everywhere.
No, I won't do that. I do walk some places, and I do walk a lot, but I'm not going to be walking the places that I go. I mean, I'm getting ready to go to Van Leer, Tennessee.
Man, that'd be a heck of a walk.
That would be. And then I would have to pack my backpack up and then walk to Gainesville, Florida.
Speaking of walking, this is a good time to give a shout out for what we're going to do on the show on Friday.
Right.
So yesterday, a gentleman by the name of Brian Geetz, he is a retired U.S. Marine veteran, and he is walking across the state of Ohio to raise awareness on veterans issues. So he came through Jackson yesterday, and me and Pete caught up with him, and we did an interview with him. So that's going to be probably in Saturday's Telegram, but we're going to have that video interview with him on the show on Friday.
Cool.
So that is really cool, and he's like, I don't know, like twice a year, I think he chooses a state. He's from Iowa. And so he chooses a state and he walks from across the state carrying an American flag and a Marine Corps flag, and just meets with veterans groups.
I've seen this guy before, yeah. So
Yeah.
that's
So-
neat that he came through Jackson.
Yeah, so he's going to finish his trip in Gallipolis tomorrow, and he's going to walk in the Gallipolis Veterans Day Parade.
Awesome.
So yeah, so that he was a really interesting guy to chat with for about a half hour or so yesterday. So we'll have that on the show, and he gives you no excuse not to. If he can walk from Cincinnati to Gallipolis,
I guess, yeah.
you can walk to Gainesville or wherever it was.
That's a long haul, but I could do it if I have to. You might.
Yeah.
Are you challenging me?
No.
We could do something for charity.
Yeah. Well, my dad, he tells this story, and all my dad's stories you got to take with a grain of salt because you're not sure how,
All right.
But his fraternity, when he was in college, the guy decided he was going to dribble a basketball from Gallipolis to Huntington.
Okay.
So that was like the thing.
Did he
like,
make it?
I guess so. I mean,
That's
I
pretty
think
cool.
I think it was mostly just a party. The guys would come meet up with him, and they party for a little while, dribble the ball a few miles.
Hey, whatever it
Yeah.
takes, right?
Yep.
That's funny. That's
Yep.
funny. I was just looking down through here, and I watch Main Street TV a lot. I check in on you
Mm-hmm.
guys whenever I'm out on town. So, literally, but Rick Sims is typing in. I just want to give him a shout out this morning. He said, for the last 4 years since I've been retired, I try to start my morning watching Main Street TV. Being from Jackson County, Wellston, it helps me keep connected to my family and friends in the area, and just the fact that it is a great program. Well, that's a big
Yeah.
compliment to
Yeah.
you and Jennifer,
Well,
to be
yeah.
honest with
Rick,
you. and Courtney.
Rick is a loyal viewer. I see his name pop up probably every day. If he misses a day, I'd be worried about him.
That's good to have that kind of.
yeah. No, yeah.
continuity.
Well, thank you for the compliment. We appreciate you viewing, and we work really hard to, keep the community informed about things that are maybe, would get pushed under the cracks or, looked over.
And this is a great platform. I mean, have you guys ever got any controversial subjects going on here
Well,
before?
I mean, Lou Davis hasn't been on the show for about 2 years,
Yes, it really-
so I think it's been less controversial.
Hey, and that's the thing. I think that you need that in every community. There's some people out there that are sometimes a little outspoken, and sometimes you look at them and you're like, man, would you just give it a break? But no, don't.
Yeah.
Because those are the people that keeps people's eyes open,
Yeah.
and sometimes they might cry wolf, but sometimes they're hot on the trail to
Yeah.
something that needs some attention brought up to.
Well, you
and
do
controversy
Yeah.
kind of opens your eyes to that
you,
sometimes.
you do have with something like this. You are kind of walking a fine line of wanting to bring up things like that, hold people accountable for doing things that maybe, but at the same time, you also want to be accessible to everybody.
Right,
You know what I
and-
mean?
right.
And it becomes a fine line.
Well,
trying to
one
do
thing
that.
about it, though, honestly, there isn't a lot of controversy that happens around here.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the amazing things about this community, and it always. I mean, you get your little pop-up thing every
Mm-hmm.
once in a while. This guy did that, or that politician said this, or did that, or he's doing this, but it doesn't happen much around here.
Yeah.
I think that's neat. But
Facebook comment sections are what the controversial
The keyboard
arguing is
warriors,
for.
I love them, man.
That's what that's there for.
Oh, Facebook, I'm sure, has been responsible for. Well, I know it's responsible for a lot of divorces. Actually, Facebook probably can be held accountable. I mean, largely in part, it was kind of the demise of my marriage, if truth be told. I mean, but it's also a great tool. The internet is an amazing tool, and I think, that's a good thing that you focus on the positive and try to only bring out the positives in a circumstance. And I guess it's Newsman Pete's job to give us the bad news.
Yeah. He hates it when he's like, comes in, he's got a stack of paper, he's like, 50% of this is COVID.
And that's awful. And
Yeah.
and that's another thing that makes things really tough for everybody. I mean,
Yeah.
the local news media makes it tough for them to go out and cover stories.
Yeah.
It makes it tough for sales forces to go out and sell from a standpoint of limited access
yeah.
and limited funds now from a lot of people because cost of everything's going up.
Well, there are all these, all those shipping, shortages and things like that going on right now. And the one that's affecting us, like at Total Media, zip printing, they've got that huge Konica printer. Makes
Let me guess, it's a microchip that goes in.
No, it's not a microchip, it's the toner.
Oh.
And so apparently toner is very flammable, and apparently the toner factory blew up. So poor Stacy is panicking trying to get toner in, and they only let you order so much. She's like, we're gonna go through that in a week. So they're doing their best to keep up with it, but it's just one of those things. It's just out of your control.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much of that. It's really strange whenever you watch, and I try not to do it. I went down the rabbit hole last December, January, February, and followed all that stuff and about drove myself nuts with it. But, I mean, even to this day, a year later, when we're looking, and I don't understand why it is the way that it is, but you've got all these container ships that are sitting out off the coast of California full of cargo, but have nowhere to drop the cargo to. And that makes absolutely no sense to me.
Yeah.
I travel.
Well, those ships are just so big.
They are.
I guess that's probably the issue is it's just a slow process getting them in, unloading them.
Well, what makes it so much slower now than it was 2 years ago? Because here's what I'm finding out, and whether or not it's true, I mean, I could be misled, but to ship something cost you 3 times more now than what it used to. Say a container to ship cost you $700. 6 months, 8 months, it's $2,100 to ship that same exact container right now. And not only does it cost more, it takes longer for it to get there. I know that Florida, I've heard, is opening up some of their ports, saying, "Come on down here, you can unload there." But I can't understand how these goods aren't, once they get to the ports, why they aren't leaving the ports and making the room to do that. Because I'm telling you, I travel all over this eastern United States, from the Mississippi eastward. I go on the other side of the Mississippi sometimes, and it's the same thing out there. Truck after truck after truck. People are traveling on the highways. Gas prices may be up, but we still have a thriving economy, at least from a shipping standpoint. You cannot get in a rest area after 8 p.m. Like me, I travel with a travel trailer, so I have to be very specific on where I go and where I park. I end up having to go to large parking lots like Walmart's and different things like that.
All right, so I want to talk about the travel trailer thing in here in a second. But I think with the shipping containers, the issue is it's just like a domino effect. Like, if one thing gets delayed, there's just so many, because it's just, they're just one after another, and if one of them gets delayed, it becomes a domino effect, and it just slows everything down, because there's so many and they're so big, it just takes forever to get caught up to it.
It does, but and that brings me, this right here enlightens me on this idea right here, because as much as there is traffic out there, and as many as much shipping and all that you see like that, they're still needing truck drivers. They're begging for people to drive trucks and get this stuff shipped across, out of those ports and stuff like that. And that just blows me away that, they're begging for people to come and drive these trucks, man. And get them places.
And you mentioned that microchip shortage, like Kenworth, just down the street here. I understand they've got dozens and dozens and dozens of those brand new trucks sitting there, and they can't do anything with them because they can't get the microchips.
Hundreds and hundreds sitting on the Ross County Fairgrounds right now. I was up at an event at the Ross County Fairgrounds, Chillytown Motocross, that's something cool to the area that I'll touch on here in a moment. But I was just blown away that a good portion of the Ross County Fairgrounds is stacked
housing those trucks
with trucks. They've got their lots full, and I was talking to somebody, said, "Oh yeah, they've got places like this all around." My brother-in-law works there, and they get to work a few days a week. He'll get to go in for a couple days, and then they'll get laid off. They'll get a shipment of parts, and they'll
They'll
go
work
and work
until
for
they're out of the.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So and that might be part of the domino
Yeah.
effect, little
Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah.
You're such a wise young man.
Well, I mean, it's like that with everything right now. I mean, all these computers and things like that. It's just like that with everything, and supply and demand. If something that's just absurdly high demand, it just
All right. My
meet to
question
it.
is, why hasn't someone figured out how to make these microchips in the United States yet?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a question beyond me. I mean, it's
Why do
cost
we
of
outsource all that
I mean,
anyway?
cost of labor, I guess, is the main thing. It's just you don't have to pay people in China and Hong Kong don't get paid as much as workers in the United States. I guess it's probably the main thing.
Yeah.
Maybe EPA
We'll see where that leads us.
regulations is part of it too.
Yeah, that and you see where that got us. I mean,
Yeah.
here we are right
I
now.
heard I'm sure I've talked to you about this before, but I love the public radio show This American Life. Are you familiar with that?
No, not.
So they've been doing it for like 30 years, and it's just like human interest stories.
I've caught that
Yeah.
before. I thought it was something
And
new.
so this is an old episode, but they re-aired it this past week, and they're talking about these chocolate factories in in Chicago. And so if you're like out in Chicago through the part of the town that's close to these chocolate factories, it just smells like chocolate. And the EPA, for whatever reason, like came down on these chocolate factories, and people in Chicago were like outraged. They're like, "Why are you not going after these coal plants and stuff like
Right.
that are like
When you
worse polluters? Like, why are you going after the factory that makes the city smell like chocolate?"
We want the city to smell like sulfur,
But it's a great story. It's so funny.
Isn't that weird? People.
Yeah. But supposedly they made the changes they had to make to meet the EPA regulations, and it still smells like chocolate. So
Good.
apparently all is right in that issue.
Good. I want to go there because I'll be honest with you. Different communities, they have their own smell for whatever reason. Chillicothe.
Oh yeah, Chillicothe's. There's not much nice to say about the smell of Chillicothe.
Right, except when the wind's blowing the opposite direction, I mean, that's that, and people, I think, when you drive by there, you get such a negative idea of what Chillicothe may be like. That is a beautiful town. It's so historical over there. I love it. I mean,
there's
a good portion of it is like, I mean, we got South Street here in Jackson that's got all these historical places. I mean, there's like communities over there.
Bridge Street.
Yeah. Oh man, the homes over there are just amazing.
There is no more beautiful stretch of highway than between Jackson and Chillicothe,
It is pretty.
especially this time of year.
Yeah. Yeah,
Gorgeous.
I agree. Now I've seen a lot of beauty, but you're right.
You're
right. Southern tier of New York
yeah.
this time of year is pretty nice too.
Yeah.
If you've ever
Well, I
been
mean,
up
it's
there.
also no driving through like the Southwest, and
But
as far as our region,
honestly, and that brings up a good point. I travel, and honestly, it could be a lot more convenient for me to live someplace else with the job that I do.
Yeah.
I choose to stay here in Jackson. I like it here. I mean, I like the community. I like the. Now, I've always said this. Jackson's a little bit behind the rest of the world, but with the internet, we're a little more caught up now than what we used to be. But it's still funny how a little farther behind we are than what the rest of the world is. It takes us. It's still the mentality of a lot of people. It takes people a while to get into that motion, and by the time they get into it, something new's come along. But I like that slow atmosphere that we have here in this area, and that's what keeps me around here. And the cost of living, it isn't that bad. Now, when the pipeliners came through, it kind of shot the
rental properties
went crazy. I mean, a place that went for $375 a month all of a sudden was $1,200 a month. I'm like, sweetheart, where do you get the goal to think?
Supply
the
and demand.
pipeliners. You rent that to a pipeliner then, because I don't need it.
We're talking about like always being a little behind here in southeastern Ohio. I remember when I was in high school, we got like 3G phone connectivity in Oak Hill. And I remember somebody saying, "I can't believe we got 3G phone connectivity before we got a Taco Bell."
Hey, we just got a comment. I'm reading down through some of these things. By the way, My nephew Adam and watching.
Yeah.
Peace. YOLO, brother. You only live once, man.
Yep.
And that's one of his sayings. And we spend a lot of time together on the road. But anyway, he's watching down there out of Richmond, Kentucky. But Justin Drummond says most everyone here in Ross County refers to the smell of mead as the smell of money. And, you know,
So Justin is our engineer. He's who put together the new WKOV studio.
Yeah. Okay, I didn't realize that was his name. You know, Jackson. You know what the smell of Jackson is? Pizza rolls.
Yeah. I got to tour the Belicio factory one day last week. Man, every room you go into, it's like, oh, this is the pizza roll room. This is the donut room. So it's just like, oh man, just the tomato sauce smell just hits you, or just like the sugar smell just hits you.
Yeah, that's funny. My girlfriend's mom has been working there. And that's a great. I mean, I'm not just because I said Jackson smells like pizza. I'm not down on it at all. It don't smell like that all the time. Sometimes it smells like egg foo young or whatever they do over there. But it's a great. But my girlfriend's mom works over there. She checks all the pizza rolls that come out. She weighs them, makes sure they got the right amount of sauce, the right amount of pieces of pepperoni in them, and things like that. I never realized how meticulous of a job it is to make a stinking pizza roll.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they sit there on that line and they look at them, and if one goes by that's not right, they snatch it, toss it, snatch it, toss it.
Hey, kudos to those folks. I've kind of thought that I might want to go try that job for one day. I mean, just one day or maybe 2 days. You know, first day just to get an idea of what's going on, and then the second day to really try to perform the job.
The task,
to see, you know, to see it. Because I'm sure, I mean, I'm sure it's not hard, but it's not easy.
I mean, you're on your feet.
Right.
I mean,
there's a lot that goes along with it.
Yeah. Have you seen their new, like, front lobby in the office area? What they just recently... That's beautiful.
They've done some major renovations over there.
Yeah, that front office over there at Belicio, it's beautiful now. And they've got a really nice conference room with those beautiful glass doors.
Yeah, I like how they incorporated the old building and built as just basically modernized everything.
Yeah, well,
and modernized it at the same time.
My understanding back in the day, it was two separate buildings, and then they had this big oven that was like so big that it was like outside. And then they combined those two buildings into one and brought that big oven inside.
That's a great piece of history right there, James. You ought to do a little historical thing for Main Street TV.
I think I'm saying that right. I apologize if I misquoted them on it, but that was my understanding of it. But that would be interesting. Is that plant's been there since the 70s?
Every bit of it, yeah.
I mean, it was there when my mom
60s.
was in high school.
Yeah, I didn't. I mean, I know it's been there since. We moved here as a family in 73, I think it was, 1973, 74 in that area. And it's, you know, I remember it always being here.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it was like.
It was Chung King.
Chung King, yeah.
That was the original name. Yeah.
Yep. And then I remember when it became Geno's and
Louis Geno's,
and they expanded the airport, and that's something we need to get on. We need a regional airport. We need to make it so I can just fly out of that airport.
Well, I don't know if you saw, but we did a special about the Jackson County Airport on the show about a month or so ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah, to promote their fly-in event. We went and we did a tour of the airport and talked about the history of it a little bit and stuff like that. It's really neat. It's really neat. I'd like to do that with the Athens County Airport too, because it's like kind of one step bigger than what we have here in Jackson. I think that'd be really interesting.
Yeah, you got some good ideas, and I'm putting it on your shoulders too.
Well, I mean, here in Jackson, of course, we have the connection with Governor Rhodes, right? Because he was from the Colton area originally,
right?
And it's my understanding that his big contribution as governor was he said every county needs to have a regional airport. And he put that in motion, and he's the reason that we have that airport here in Jackson. Probably the reason that there's one in, Athens and Gallipolis. And
right. That's amazing what that man did for the state of Ohio, and especially southeastern Ohio. I'm sure everything, it trickles over. We feel like we got the special benefit of it because he came from southeastern Ohio, and more specifically in Colton, but he was a great governor for a long time, many terms, served in the state of Ohio,
My watch is telling me it's time to stand up, so I'm going to go grab the keyboard real quick.
Okay.
You keep talking. I'll be right back.
Keep everyone entertained.
Yeah.
And see, there you go. It wasn't very entertaining.
It
but
wasn't.
They watched me watch you.
So I want to give a shout out tomorrow. Tomorrow, of course, is Veterans Day. So Pete's going to be here with Do the News tomorrow, but we're also going to have a guest, Arnold Tripp. He from the Veteran Services. He's going to come in,
Right.
and he's going to talk about all the stuff that's going on for Veterans Day. Pete knows what all is going on. I'm going to learn from Pete shortly, but we're going to get out and try to film some of these Veterans Day celebrations, and then we'll bring those to you on the show on Friday. But yeah, so we're excited to have Arnold in here tomorrow. And I want to look at the weather real quick. Specifically, we want to look at Friday night, Jackson Ironmen playoff football. If they win this game, it would be their 11th win of the season, which would be the most wins in school history.
Wow.
That's right. I mean, they've been playing football since 1917, I think Dan Morrow told me.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
And to see that program come the way that it, from where it has, I know back, I think it was in the 60s, Jackson had an amazing football team in the late 60s, early 70s, and then it was a pretty decent program. But when I was in school, something happened. I don't know. I mean, we lost every game. I mean, it was like we went through a spell in that mid 80s that was just like horrible. And they hired a guy that I think it was Larry Blackstone, if I'm not mistaken. It was whoever it was, that guy, and him, and then some guys got together, obviously. But they started that youth program, and of course Mr. Humphreys kept it, going and thriving the way that he did, and he was a big and monumental part of that. But what was really cool about that, I watched. The 1993 one of the first successful football teams that really began the powerhouse of Jackson when we started getting back into the playoffs and stuff. It was the fruits of the labors of those guys that brought those kids up through Pee Wee. When we went, I was 7th grade before I ever touched a football. I mean, other than backyard football, before I ever put a pad on or anything like that. I was personally I was in 8th grade. I played like 8th and 9th grade, and then I started to play the 10th grade, and by that time I was like, man, I'm tired of getting beat up. These boys they're mean.
Yeah. I was just tired of spending 3 hours of practice after school every day.
But for me, to see that program go from where it's gone since I graduated high school in 1987 to where it is today, that's cool, dude. I mean, that you look at that, I feel a lot of pride in that. Even though I had absolutely nothing to do with it, I feel prideful for my community to see what they've been able to achieve. Because when I was a kid, Ironton was the bomb, and it was all about Ironton. And
Ironton's still the bomb.
We were 8th grade. I swear, 8th grade, those boys were shaved. They shaved when we played the 8th graders, and half of them drove away in their own car after the game.
Yeah, I remember when I was in 9th grade. I remember playing a school. This kid, I swear, he had a full beard and drove himself to the game in 9th grade. I swear to God, I'm not making that up.
Is there something going on there?
Yeah.
But I mean, that doesn't happen. I mean, I don't think that's going on anywhere today. But obviously, with the checks and balances and the internet and things the way.
Well, I think he was 14 or 15 years old. I think he was just that big.
And that just might be the case.
I don't think he was cheating. I just think he was just that big.
He wasn't a 22-year-old, 14-year-old from Ecuador or something like that. But I mean, but it's really cool. So congratulations to the Jackson Ironmen. The coaching staff that they got now has been a remarkable coaching staff. And I have to give kudos to Dan, and Pete. I love listening to their play-by-play. Those guys,
dude, they're good.
They are.
Yeah, I sat there beside them in the press box a little bit this past week, Friday, and got to bask in their town a little bit.
I've worked with a lot of people, and I've seen a lot, and I've watched a lot of sports over the years. You watch a professional game, you listen to a professional game you never get a more fair and balanced, informative, broadcast than what you get with those guys. I mean, they're Ironman fans. There's no doubt about it. But they tell it like it is. You know what I mean? And they visualize this thing. You know, I can see everything going on when Dan Dobbins, you know, he drops back in the bucket. You know, they start to. I love it, man. Yeah, I love it.
Did you watch our show Monday by any chance?
No, I didn't.
Dan Morrow came in to talk about last week's game. You should have seen the stack of notes he had.
Pete's over there, that guy right there. He's a human tally machine.
Yeah, Pete's got his yellow legal pad that nobody except for him can read, keeping stats. Pete said, he's like, I turn those stats into the school after every game, and I don't think they do anything with them. I was like, well, Pete.
You can't read
Not sure. They may or may not be able to read them. All right, well, we're having too much fun. This is about time to get out of here. Before we do, let's give one more shout out to Remembering the 60s concert this Saturday at the Marquee. Limited tickets available. Visit the Marquee website to order tickets.
I wish I would be in town for that.
Yeah.
Those guys, they put on a great, they're very entertaining, and that's a good thing. If you like good music and you like live music and you like to be entertaining and you like to be a part of the show. I know you had John in here, Pelletier, yesterday, who's a big part of that. Dude, that dude is, I mean, to me, whenever I think about the term groovy, John Pelletier comes to mind. I think he's just a groovy dude,
especially now that I've seen some of those photos of him from the 80s and stuff with his big hair.
Right. He's got the groove, man. Yeah. I mean, he's a groovy dude. I mean, if to me that he's like, so.
Yeah. Well, Rodney, thank you so much for coming in.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Being in town.
Why you wanted me in here, I don't know.
Well, because I didn't want to talk to myself. And Jennifer isn't feeling good enough to be in.
And there was nobody else.
There was nobody else. Pete is sick and tired of me pulling him away from the newspaper.
We just start to say I ran out of options.
I mean, you're the most capable person.
Well, I appreciate your confidence.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for watching. We'll be back tomorrow. Pete Wilson and Arnold Tripp. We're going to talk about local news and Veterans Day stuff.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Take care, guys. Bye.